So if I send you an email that sounds 100% AI generated and I did not put any effort into making it sound more human, this will be like insulting thing, I believe, in the coming years. We thought, why don't we use this information to educate those folks and help them to become better writers over time? I believe that like the ideal use of AI in education will be make people productive, but still try to somehow foster their critical thinking and these kind of things.
Welcome to the AI Native Podcast. Today, we're excited to welcome Aleksandr Lashkov, co-founder of Linguix and a pioneering builder of AI writing tools long before ChatGPT became a household name. With a background as a non-native English speaker and a deep understanding of product development, Alex brings unique insights into how AI has transformed the way we write, communicate, and learn. In this episode, we explore how AI has leveled the playing field for writers, the rise of grammar tools that serve both native and non-native speakers, and why simply generating text isn't enough. It has to sound human. We'll also dive into the evolving role of large language models in education, professionalism, and everyday productivity. Plus, Alex's lessons from building one of the earliest AI writing assistants. This episode is brought to you by AIorNot.com, the platform that helps you detect whether content was created by a human or generated by AI. Visit AIorNot.com to learn more. All right, let's dive into today's conversation.
Alex, thank you so much for joining. We were just chatting a little bit about your background and some of the things that you've done across multiple companies, multiple tools, multiple avenues of technology and AI. I have some assumptions I want to make about who uses this kind of tool because we've seen, especially, like AI definitely has democratized a little bit of writing, kind of put everyone on an even playing field. Both you and I are immigrants and with English as our second language. And I think AI has democratized a lot of the writing, but I think as we all experienced, AI off the shelf does not create the best writing, the most believable writing. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you approached it from both the product perspective and who ended up being like some of the use cases for the product as well.
Sure. So I was working on Linguix for almost 7 years, and it started in the era where LLMs and GPT were like widespread. So our approach was changing over the time as new technologies emerged, and we found ourselves like being able to do more things with less resources because it was always, as a small startup, it was always like a main question for us, like resources. How do we do cool things, deliver value, but with limited resources that we had on hand always. And also our approach to who we actually serve also changed. We pivoted a couple of times along the way. The first idea was that we will be doing a thing for non-native speakers like ourselves, for immigrants. So it was like more narrow audience. And back then we thought that folks like us potentially do not need like those comprehensive grammar assistance that Grammarly was offering back then, because like, immigrants and non-native speakers could not even understand most of those corrections. This was our thing. So we were working on delivering like the most accurate but very narrowed experience. Like only we were aiming to fix only things that we were 100% sure are incorrect, mostly like typos, main grammar issues, this kind of thing. But once we started working on that, we realized that actually things were not like that. Our perception was wrong because non-native speakers, they actually wanted like to sound as native. So they wanted those comprehensive corrections so that I would look cool and, professional and native. While non-native speakers who started using our tool, they were more actively using actually because for them, they know English. This is their like mother tongue, but they type very fast, this kind of thing. So they would do typos and this is embarrassing. So actually the approach we thought would suit non-native speakers more actually benefited native speakers because those folks were not after like comprehensive styling, this kind of thing. They just wanted no typos in my emails. because I do want to sound professional, like not I'm not in a hurry, which I was. So at this point, we understood that like we cannot distinguish between native speakers and non-native speakers. We cannot like via marketing tools, we could not. So we decided to serve all of them. And this led us to conclusion that we need to add more comprehensive AI suggestions. And at that point, we introduced our own LLM. So back then, like 5 years ago or 4.5 years ago, the system from the product standpoint consisted of 3 layers. It was like rule-based, simple language engine where you just create rules like how the typo should like, and then it would fix it. It was several thousand of mistakes that we were carried like that. Then came the LLM level where the neural network fixed things for users. And then also we had like a filter layer for heuristic filters. It was called back then, because sometimes LLM hallucinate or sometimes they fix the typo that should be fixed on the previous level of the rule-based engine, and we were merging those things. So it was the third layer. And afterwards, we started working on adding things like additional languages when ChatGPT, OpenAI came in, and it was like, as you said, democratized also the development of language solutions. So that was the cool time when you can spin up new experiments, do new features, new products very fast.
That's super interesting because I think if someone was building this tool starting today, you would probably start with one of the new AI models. But you were doing this 7 years ago, way before any of these, way before ChatGPT was out in the wild, or Claude or Grok or whatever the preference is for a person. What happened when AI launched? Did you notice your users, the change in how they were using it? Were they using it more so, like, was it still like you described, native speakers trying to clean up their emails, or English as a second language, people trying to get the wording right? Or was it people as like, AI writes the concepts well, but I want the writing to sound a little bit more realistic and human? What happened to your company, in terms of the usage when ChatGPT and AI really became quite popular?
At first, it was actually scary because we were thinking like, well, like our solutions or Grammarly-like solutions would become like obsolete, these kind of things, like commodity. And on from one hand, it was like true. Grammar checking right now is like spell checking before, like in Word or whatever. Like it's just really a commodity. Like everyone expects to have it, so it's not like a game changer for anyone these days. Uh, but LMs, interestingly, actually did not kill solutions like ours. And if you go and look at the grammar checkers market, it was like 10 major solutions that are alive like for 10 years. And even after ChatGPT came out, they're all still here. Like there are no companies going out of business, no bankruptcies, these kind of things. Yes, they're like changing, they're evolving, and we can talk about that later, but all of them are alive. And I spent like quite a while thinking about that, like in like strategic point of view, like why is that happening? Like why folks are still using solutions like the one we were building, even though they can go to ChatGPT and get like the same grammar fixed, these kind of things. And what I understood was that first, like using ChatGPT in a chat mode, it is a tricky task for like regular people. So folks who are always on the internet, like us, for us it is like seamless experience. We understand how to do this. But for example, my mom or someone who is not like that tech savvy, for those folks, it is a real issue. So they do not know how to do like a right prompt, how to, refine results, and they can get like frustrated if they do not get like instantly what they wanted to get. And this is actually why lots of ChatGPT wrappers became like very popular, because yes, they were just sending your data into like the LLM, but the prompt that the real engineers constructed, they were way better than the prompts that you were able to come up with as an end user. And so there's still value even in those things. And the other thing, and I believe the most important one, was that writing assistants like ours, we were very good and we were very good at delivery. So you do not need to go to ChatGPT. Like you have the browser extension installed and you go to any website you work in, like Gmail, Google Docs, whatever, and the magic instantly happens within. You just type, we detect that there's the issue with this sentence and or with this phrase or this word and fix it for you. And you do not even understand who fixes this, like ChatGPT, like other LLM, and you do not particularly care actually. You just see that your content becomes better. And customer interviews that I was doing back in Linguix show that folks really do not care that much about like what AI exactly is helping them right now. But what they do care about is that they still can deliver their thoughts in a more crisp and clear way. And it was one of the main feedbacks I was getting, like, why do you use Linguix if you can do like use ChatGPT or something? So they were saying it is hard. And I still do not feel confident enough to send those emails myself because I believe when I use Linguix, and maybe this was like, some sort of a cargo cult or something, but people actually believe that once the AI is looking for them, the overall results are better, even though if they cannot actually quantify them anyhow. There was a lady who were an administrator in a child care facility, and they were doing field trips in summer, and she was communicating with parents via email. And she said that she feels that when she uses Linguix to paraphrase sentences for her, people understand her better and faster, and there is less back and forth. She could not, calculate this or quantify those, but this was her impression, and she felt like better. So this is good enough for the product like ours. And this is, I believe, this delivery thing. I believe this is why now ChatGPT is working on their own browser, OpenAI, while Perplexity released Comet, their browser, because they would like to tap into those experiences to make people like assist people where they go, so that they do not have to always come to the specific website, specific chat and enter there, so that they could deliver like the seamless experience.
I want to come back to that point on the browser and that seamless experience. Users don't particularly care which AI that they use. They just want it done. Sometimes I'll prompt, like I'll line up all the AIs across that I use, Claude, ChatGPT. I don't even know which ones answer, which ones research whatever I'm doing comes out. I don't even remember. I just line them up and be like, see who wins type of deal. So I really appreciate that. In your experience, just for a very specific task of like write an email, people just wanted it done. They didn't really care which one got it done. Now, on the other side, when people started using like ChatGPT and Claude's writing, did you find that they were grabbing the text or the writing from one of those AIs and then coming to Linguix to try to like fix it? Because I think we went through this phase like, wow, ChatGPT and Claude are, could be really good writers. But then we started like kind of seeing, there's definitely AI tells. Like, let me tell you about this. Like, let's delve into this. And, the dashes and all of those things that get overused by AI. Did you find that people were coming to you now? Like, there was a whole new set of users who were using the AI tools for writing off the bat and then Linguix to clean it up?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, as we had our browser extension and we could analyze the domains on where it was more frequently used. And in the recent years, ChatGPT became like top 5 domains. So folks were actually using grammar and writing assistant to help them to construct the prompt that would be sent to AI. So they were not confident enough that they could instruct the LLM to do stuff for them without help of the another LLM. And also, after we released a feature called Humanizer, it started to be more and more popular, even like for this specific reason, I believe, because folks were like, I need help, right? I have this writer block thing. I'm not a writer, so please ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. help me write this email, but then I would like to ask some other solution to make sure it sounds like human. So yeah, this is the case, and more people now understand these kind of things. Not all of the users care about that, but I believe the number of people who are concerned about sounding too AI generated, it will be more and more. Sure, there are some industries or areas like education, for example, when they actually prohibit using AI solutions, and cheating students are using those solutions, and they used humanizers as well. But also folks who communicate for work, and I believe it will be like a new ethics emerging here. So if I send you an email that sounds 100% AI generated and I did not put any effort into making it sound more human, this will be like insulting thing, I believe, in the coming years. So yeah, I believe those kind of solutions and features will be more.
I agree with you. My full name's Anatoly. Most people call me Tolik in Russian, much closer to, to how people actually call me. And it's almost my AI filter. If an email addresses me as "Hi Anatoly," I'm like, oh, it's probably some AI tool versus "Hey Toly." I think, oh, this person actually might know me. Even when I was building, we have a AI text detection product at AI or Not, and we provide, one, the overall response of whether or not this block of text is AI generated, but we also analyze like which parts of a sentence, which words are being heavily weighted for the AI score. And one for transparency, like to see how the model works. And it's like, hey, this is where this is where our model thinks the AI is being caused. Like these block of words, it just doesn't sound human. I want to stay on the education piece because I love your experience, Alex, in the writing space and the rewriting space of, pre and post LLMs. What do you think that LLMs have done, for the education system? Like personally, as I'm a parent, I make my kids, especially my middle schooler, write pen and paper now because I don't trust anything that gets written. He's very familiar with ChatGPT. I still want him to think for himself, and then AI becomes a big accelerator versus, if you're on the internet, you can write, incredible pieces of work that's not your own thoughts. And I think that's a problem. I don't know, Alex, if you have an opinion, because you've been building this pre and post LLMs, and if you have an opinion on where the world is going.
Well, yeah, I actually have an opinion here, and even like a bit of data-backed opinion. So I think that it's like two sides of the coin here, like as usual. So on the one hand, LMs can be super useful in education. On the other hand, as you said, it can completely hinder the ability of the person to think for themselves, like trying to solve the problem. And I believe that like the ideal use of AI in education will be make people productive, but still try to somehow foster their critical thinking and these kind of things. This could look like chatbots, for example, or teams provided, like most of the learning will migrate online, like at some point, right? And so we will have those educational platforms. And if those platforms would use AI to actually give some direction for the learners, but never answers. So like if you're stuck here, here's what you can do to get yourself unstuck. Like you can go and read this thing, or you can maybe experiment in this direction. And AI can come up with all those new things. And this will be very good in terms of making education more accessible and affordable in different parts of the world where you do not have lots of teachers that could cover all those folks and kids, for example. Or adults who are changing careers. Using AI, you can serve more learners at scale, right? But if you also try to make sure that those people will actually focus on acquiring new skills, acquiring new knowledge, getting unstuck by themselves so that they could learn on the schedule they like, if they work and they can study at night. Like you don't have like the like teacher or like associate who will be waiting for him when he comes from work and start like learning to help them get unstuck. But LLM can, because LLM like doesn't care about like what time of day it is, right? So I believe those kind of users that make use of the power of AI, but making sure that we do not hinder the ability to find solutions by people, this will be the silver bullet here.
So, in your opinion, as a builder and a user of these tools, what do you think is the right mix, like both for education and professionals? Like, how do you think we use AI in a way that enhances human ability, creativity, and like you said, critical thinking, while still not training us to be so over reliant on AI that we lose all of those things, and creativity stops to exist for the majority of people? What do you think is the right path forward, and how should we be educating the adult population and the next generation of users of these tools?
Well, we had actually some experiments around that at Linguix that were not very successful. And so I have some opinion based on our own mistakes here. At some point, we decided that we could actually combine two approaches. And since we're a writing assistant who is tailored initially for non-native speakers, and we had thousands of non-native speaker users, we thought, why don't we use this information to educate those folks and help them to become better writers over time? Uh, like we actually got excited, and some of our investors got excited about this idea. So we started building this thing. It was called Writing Coach back then, like several years ago. We all launched it on like Product Hunt, and it was like top 3 products of the day or something like that. So it was like cool and sexy, and it was like a web application with all those grammar exercises that was actually triggered via browser extension. We were like, hey, you made this article mistake for like 10 times in a row. Here's the link. You can go and study. And actually, surprisingly, but actually not surprisingly, nobody would use this. And when we were then trying to like backwards understand what was wrong with this approach, like people were telling me the like hard truth here. So they were buying Linguix as a work solution. And as a, like when I work, I do not want anyone to teach me anything. I just want to get things done and earn my money and go do my thing, right? And even back then, before the LLMs, they weren't like using like 3, 5 writing systems like Grammarly, Linguix, Language Tool, whatever. And who was the first one to catch the text error and underline things? They would accept those corrections. They were not like caring too much about like what app exactly was helping them. So I believe like we do the main thing, the main learning here, like we should not mix those two things. Like when people work, they work. Let's not bother them with education. But when they are like when they decide that they need to actually learn, those solutions need to be tailored to learning. So you just cannot take apps from the productivity world and drag them into the education world, because you do not need productivity in education. In education, you need different things. You need to focus on critical thinking, to focus on problem solving, and ability to search for a solution, for an answer for themselves, or foster an ability to ask like correct questions. Here comes I already say we can teach person to how to ask things, to hint them in what direction they can dig by themselves. When we're talking about like work and knowledge workers, folks who spend their time online, like writing emails, creating documents for work, we do not need like to educate them anything. Here we should strive for productivity, reduce the number of clicks, providing like magic. And I also have some experiments around that when we were releasing the feature for paraphrasing in Linguix. At first, it worked like that. You could, if you wanted to paraphrase the sentence, you needed to first decide that you need to paraphrase this exact sentence. Then you had to highlight the whole sentence, and then the bubble would appear and you click, and then AI would generate some options, and you would need to pick like the one you actually like most. So nobody would use that. But when we simplified the feature and we renamed it from paraphraser to simplifier, and it was like a simple algorithm that would detect like overly complex and too long sentences, and we would proactively underline the whole sentence so that you just need to click and then click once again to accept the correction. There, when the hockey stick in terms of the usage came in place. So when folks are working, they just need like the magic that will be instantly improving their thing, delivering value. So it's a completely different thing. We should not mix it in like anyhow.
I think that's a great approach. It's almost like human nature in a nutshell. Like, what's the percentage of people who finish the self-run courses? It's like less than 5%, right? So it's like we all come with best intentions, and yet at the end of the day, you just want the thing done without the long education runway to do it. How about on the education side, both from the student perspective and the teacher perspective? Do you have any insights from your experience doing the Humanizer type products for how both students or educators view this space?
Well, actually, educators were falling like into two larger groups. Like one group, they were like completely against like innovation in this space, like in terms of AI, because like we want full control, and they wanted to preserve like academic integrity, like fight cheating, these kind of things. It is quite hard to work with those folks, and they're in control of how they learn, right? So we didn't actually work that much with those educators, but there also was another type of educators who were seeing Linguix, for example, as a way to better understand their students, because we had the thing that was called a team plan that could be used either for education or for work. And there we had our own analytics system built in that would track the performance of each specific user, in this case, student. And from the experience that we had before, we had this thing that could determine the issues that they have, and like map the trends that those folks, they are having issues with this grammar topic, for example. And those are having issues with style. If there's languages involved, for example, John, Katie, they're having issues with Spanish, but they're quite good at French right now. So their progress is remarkable here. And in the case of a large class and only one educator, or like one or a couple educators, they would be able to see who from their students were struggling with which topic and offer tailored guidance to those folks, and do not wait until, I believe this is one of the potential applications of AI solutions around writing.
What do you view as the future of this? Like you mentioned, there's been a lot of grammar applications like the Simplifier and Humanizer apps. And now, like you even mentioned, you saw AI usage skyrocket to being a top 5 domain almost, it felt like overnight. What do you see as the future of this world, like in terms of just the written word? How do you see it play out? Are all emails going to be like AI infused? Are student essays going to be a lot of times AI written or AI helped? Are we going to take a step back and maybe more like handwritten notes, handwritten papers, and go back to like when I was in school before all this? Like, and how do you view it for both business as well as for education, Alex?
Well, I think that we are moving towards a world where almost everything at some point is touched by AI. The degree of this penetration will be different based on the era. But what can I say for sure? I believe that the written word and the natural language will become even more important than it was before. Because right now, like before, if you would like to become a programmer or engineer, you would need to study like a programmer language. Right now, with all those LLMs and coding, you can tap into engineering and coding, vibe coding right now, but potentially in a more serious kind of thing by just knowing like English, right? Now you can program by creating prompts in tools like Cursor, for example, and or Copilot, or this kind of thing. It just using English. You do not quite need to know the specifics of the programming language to get started right now. But you still need to understand algorithms, data structures, how those things work. And to understand that, you will still need to learn. And here, like AI can guide you, like, but it cannot like actually teach you, because otherwise you just will be copy and pasting things. You will not be learning. And all, but still, again, and we come into, it's like a circle. But there will be more and more new solutions for work, for education, and some of those solutions might be even vibe coded. So there might be a situation when the like person who is not a programmer vibe coded an educational solution that actually is quite good at teaching programming by providing like AI assistant hints, but not giving away real answers. And those folks can then continue their learning paths on themselves and become like good professionals in, like, in a couple of years, for example. And the same goes for like marketers and salespeople. They would use AI to gather information, like the example from your email, like how people use and pronounce your name. So those folks who actually want to close a deal with you and who need to please you, they will invest the time to and maybe use AI to actually somehow gather this insight. This guy wants to be named Holly and not Anatoly, and this is like a more polite way to approach him. Let's do that. But still, the decision to do this will come from the person. So I believe the strong professionals, they would be creative about using AI in a way we cannot right now imagine. But I do not believe there will be a world that is fully like autonomous, fully automated by AI. This is not the case, but the AI will like hugely empower all parts, like from education to professional work. This is what I think.
I completely agree with you. I think it will touch everything, whether we like it or not. But I still like to think, we humans play a really important role in directing it. Like there was a recent study from MIT that says that ChatGPT is actually making people dumber. And they show like cognitive ability, like for people who are just using pen and paper to people who are in front of ChatGPT, and is much less. It's much less. It kind of turns off parts of our brain. And, if we're over relying, I think that's a problem. But again, even within our business at AI or not, we use Claude Code and Cursor for coding. We use AI across the organization to better improve it, but that's people directing it. My last question for you, Alex. You've experienced building AI products before AI was cool. You've seen the world change and you were a big, big part of it. What things would you have done differently with Linguix? And like what things, if you were everything that you know and all those incredible insights that you provided, if you were creating an AI grammar helper or a humanizer today, like what things would you do differently knowing what you know now?
It's an interesting question. You could say that you would do 80% of things differently right now. But I believe those 20% were actually pretty important and we were getting this right. I would still be working in this area, that's for sure. I was a huge believer 7 years ago and nothing changed right now. That like how people write, how they communicate is actually a key part of their overall success in life. If you cannot communicate well, you cannot express yourself well, you are losing lots of opportunities. So I would still work on that, but maybe I would start adding more languages so that we could help more folks in different regions right away. And I would probably just keep this step when we were just doing this, like we fix only things that we are 100% sure in, and we can explain them like grammar rules, this like rule-based engine. We spent almost a year building that. I would like cut this part right now and just jump into working on our own. Maybe we would launch a bit later, but it would be like more powerful solution right away. So all of the marketing efforts that we were doing to drive initial users, initial traffic, then we just retention was not that good at that point. So I would focus on providing like AI fuel even at that point of time. Experience like right away and doing more languages. And yeah, and for sure, I would not be spending any time on education. Once you like tell that you are like a solution for professionals, you should not be like their teacher. I understand it now.
One of the questions you say that because many people use LLMs, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions at this point, but very few have actually built them. Any advice or suggestions from you for, how to go about building your own custom LLM from scratch, like for your own purposes? Because a lot of the LLMs are very general use. They're humongous, cost lots and lots of money to build. And you're saying it's like, wow, I could have done this in a very efficient, powerful way for my one thing. Any advice for all the builders who will be listening to this or reading the notes from this about how you go about building your own LLM for your company's needs?
Sure, like there can be two approaches right now. You can either experiment based on existing, like commercial LLMs, like Claude, OpenAI. You just go and use the API, and I believe there's nothing better than that. You still can deliver lots of value on top of that. Prompt engineering, the thing, like how you deliver those experiences is the thing. So, and not necessarily those bigger players will be actually ever working on those solutions that you would be building. But if for some reason you would need to build like really your own LLM that would be tailored to your specific use case, right now I would recommend going to Hugging Face. It has like a bunch of very good open source models that you can just take with like appropriate license and just start building off of that. For example, in our case, we were exploring different things and there were options on Hugging Face for that. Like we never did this, but we were able to do if we wanted. We wanted to do a autocomplete thing. And there are like a bunch of models for building autocomplete solutions on Hugging Face. If you want, there's some grammar checking models in there and you can take them and you can like work on them and evolve those models into completely different thing that would be super tailored to your use case. Yeah, this is harder and you will need like data sets to train your models, retrain them. This was like a major pain for us at some point, like 5 years ago, before like the sort of like commercial LLMs. If you build your own thing, you need to know where you will take those data. And very often those data that you would need, it is very like expensive data sets, and you need to understand like what you actually can afford here, because if there will be like not enough data to train your model, the results will be, and also you need to understand how actually will you be measuring your results, because like with OpenAI, you just go to like their API and you can be quite sure that the results will be good. When you are building your own model, you will probably need like experts on the team, like data scientists. If it is like working with natural language, you will need computational linguists. This all is very expensive and it is hard to find those folks. I know I was hiring them. This is very interesting, like way more exciting than just using an API, that's for sure. But it is also very hard and you need to ask yourself lots of questions on how you approach this task, how you make sure that the result is worthy of the effort. Yeah.
I think it's lost on many people that the open source models have caught up, and this is based on leaderboard stats, 95 to 97% as good as the leading closed source models. If you were to build your own model without any tie-up to a closed source API, I think this is a really great approach. And 95% of the way there for open source LLM, and then fine-tuned for specific use. If you use a smaller model, like one of the small Mistral ones that are all open source, you can get pretty far with building product around this. I think that's really fantastic advice, Alex. Where can people find you?
On LinkedIn and also on X.
Awesome. Alex, I greatly appreciate your time joining. I think as a practitioner and builder of these tools, it was incredible insights, and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your learnings for being at the forefront of this space.
Yeah, cool. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Tali.